Yes. Yes, we are.
Here we go. We are rock and rolling. This is number 2, day 2. Day 2, live training, meditation secrets. So yesterday, if you missed yesterday, you gotta go back and watch the replay. It was good stuff. We did movement secrets. So we broke down how to move.
Which you would think is not a big secret.
It's a little bit more than that. So we broke down like the best ways of moving the body, according to the decades that we've been studying this information, and
we went into why too. Like, why is it important to move?
Yeah.
And there's like a specific way in which we should be moving, as far as like yoga is concerned, that is optimal for health and well-being.
So we went to the minuteness of the best ways of moving, the best ways of approaching any, I'll call it exercise, but any movement, right? So I mentioned yesterday, like you're going to go if you're going to go dance, right? There's a specific way unless you're in your teens or 20s and you don't need to do any warm-ups to do anything, you go right into dancing, there's a good way of warming up. Or if I'm going to go surfing, right? Unless you're in your 20s and you don't really need to do that, which I remember back in the day I didn't ever need to warm up. Now warming up is a vital piece of everything I do. But there's a specific way of doing it, right? Whatever we're doing is a specific way of getting the body ready for that. And our whole entire approach to the physical practice is that. Now, as we look at the bigger formulas, we look at this idea of movement, meditation, and manifestation. We look at like
what we call the Awaken life formula.
What's the importance of movement? What's the importance of meditation? And how do they benefit my ability to manifest anything in my life? Movement is the key. Is the key for most of us who are type A's and we're trying to do and do and do. And we have so many things we're trying to check off the to-do list. And we are busy. The mind, even when we sit down to stop the body, almost all of us have a challenge stopping the mind. The mind is still racing, it's still trying to figure things out. And so movement is one of the keys in the support of our meditation practice, in the support of the bigger picture of manifestation. We have to get the body moving to begin to control this beautiful tool we've been given. And for most of us, it's out of control. Right? For most of us, we don't know how to hit pause. We don't know how to stop this. So movement is one of the keys to that. So there's pieces of movement that we really want to understand and how to do it in the bigger picture of exercise and vitality in the body. But when we're looking at the formula, we got to move to get this thing quiet.
Yeah, move to get this thing quiet. Move to get this thing rewired. Because what we talked about yesterday too is that like patterns of bad posture of how we're being is actually a brain thing. It's a neurological thing. So the movement's so important because it quiets this, but it also rewires this so that we can stand taller, we can feel more fluid, we can be stronger. So it's so important. Like we're moving for the brain, we're moving for the mind. But now in meditation, what we're really doing is like we're hitting the mind direct. It's not like the mind via the body. It's now the mind, the brain via the mind and the brain. So if I were to ask you, really ask anybody in the United States, when you hear the word yoga, what do you think of? 99.9, I'll just say 100% of them think of what John just did. It's postures. And it's not like, we're not against that. Like we have yoga studios and we teach the postures, we teach students how to become teachers to teach postures, but like, so it's valuable, like we talked about yesterday, but the secret is that yoga is like this much postures. When it was first developed 6,000 plus years ago, it was meditation. That's secret number 1, is that yoga really, at its core, is meditation, not asana. Now, even that, what I just said, if you're like new to yoga, you're like asana, like I just cussed at you. I didn't. Asana is the root word of it actually means to take a seat. Now, it's developed over time into meaning like postures in the sense of like warrior 2, up dog, down dog, and all that stuff. But take it back to the roots. Asana is meditation. Yoga is meditation. Boom, mic drop.
So what's fascinating about this is that 6,000 years ago, people were suffering from the same thing we're suffering from now. So you think about 6,000 years ago, like, what did they have to? What were they dealing with? They had like I'm stressed out about trading my 2 chickens for a goat, and maybe they go to the water hole today, and like,
You're a farmer.
a farmer, like my crop, like my point is that they were, back then there were legitimate reasons to want to control this, right? And there was an elite few, call them gurus or teachers, that understood that there's a higher level, a better way of living life. And so they delve into, they're the Olympic athletes in the process of self-realization. So they delve into the practices, the stilling practices, to begin to understand if it's possible to raise the standard of living, even back then. Now, what's fascinating is in those thousands and thousands of years, nothing's changed. People have changed.
Details have changed.
Things have changed, but this hasn't changed. And why is that? It's because this is a 2 million year old instrument that's evolving,
Our brain.
the brain, but it's still working off old systems. And what do I mean by that? I mean that this thing was developed in the beginning, in the parts of it that are still active, was developed for survival. So number one thing that your brain does is keeps you living, right? And so what it does is it scans for possible threats. Whenever you go outside, in the backdrop, your consciousness is scanning for possible threats. It wants to keep you alive, right? And so it naturally has this negative bias. So if you're walking through the woods, your brain is looking for snakes. It's looking for sticks that look like snakes. It's not noticing, unless we've patented it that way, unless we understand how to control it, it's not noticing flowers, right, for the most part, right? It's looking for snakes. So it has this negative bias. It has this leaning towards, is it going to hurt me? Right? Is it going to hurt me? Is it going to kill me? Can I survive this moment? Right? I'm looking for anything that's a threat. And then it goes, there's a hierarchy, and we won't get into that right now.
We will just for a second. There's actually 3 primary things it stands for. The very first is this thing in my environment going to kill me? Right? Because that's like, it's survival. Like this is what I wrote. It's like, survival is number 1 priority. We have a 2 million year old brain, and survival is number 1 priority. So what we're looking at in our environment is like, are any of these things going to kill me? And the very next thing is, can I eat it? Like it's literally like, okay, if it can kill me, I need to either run, fight, or, flight, or I need to like take arms and fight. So it's fight or flight, and then there's a third one that's faint, because it's like a sympathetic nervous system reaction. But so like first, is it going to kill me? Do I need to run? Do I need to fight? Or am I going to faint? 2, can I eat it? Is it something that will sustain me so that I can live another day? 3, can I have sex with it? 3rd is procreation, because it's like, man, now I want like the species to survive. Remember, it's a 2 million year old brain. It is running, the deeper inner circuitry is running off these very primal instincts of survival. Then survival is like running from things that could kill me, fighting things that could kill me, eating things to live another day, and to procreate, to have sex, so that my offspring can live, and my posterity, I can live through their experiences. So it's like fight or flight. I can feed, or I can procreate. You'll get it in a second. So, if you look at it, this is like in our daily, and now remember, this is not like top of mind, this is inner circuitry.
Running this is backdrop, this is subconscious backdrop working, that's always on in the backdrop, if our present consciousness, if our awareness is up front. And that takes training, but if we're not present, if we're often scattered in thought, subconscious drops in and it works off patterns. So it's going to keep us doing what we need to do. It's going to scan, it's going to do exactly what Chris said. It's going to scan for those things that may hurt us. It's going to scan for things that we can eat. It's going to scan for things that we can procreate with.
And so think about like your phone or your laptop. Every so often, like you get an alert, say, hey, you need to update your software. And so you got to hit it, you got to go through the process of updating your software. And this is so that your phone or your laptop can function properly. Well, when have we updated our software? This is what we're saying. Like, you have 2 million year old software that's operating in the background of your mind. It's influencing like what you focus on, and which influences how you feel, which influences the decisions that you make. And so what we're really talking about is that understanding that the next question is like, okay, well, is there a way to update that program, to update that software so that it doesn't encourage more suffering? So going back just a little bit, what's no different from 6,000 years ago to today is that we suffer. And so the question that like these original yogis were like battling with was like, is there a way to be like rid of suffering? Like unnecessary suffering. Now let's make a little like distinguish something for a second. Pain is inevitable. It's a part of living. Suffering is optional. We choose it because, but this is the thing, we don't think we choose it because we don't feel like we have a choice. We'll get into that, but it's really important to really distinguish that and like compartmentalize it. Like, we're going to lose the people that we love in our lives. Right? There's little losses every day. I have 2 beautiful children, and every day they get a little older, I lose a little bit of their youth. Right? And then there's a little bit of pain of that loss that happens. Now, that's just natural. That's just a part of like life. It's going to happen. Our like, house is going to deteriorate. Cars are going to break down. You know, we're going to lose our jobs, or we're going to like our bodies are going to get older. They're going to wrinkle. Like, that's just the nature of it. How we interact with those with the natural occurrences of life will determine whether we suffer or not. So that was like the core question, and the remedy was meditation. And we'll get into the mechanics of that a little bit later.
So this is what Chris is leaning on is what these teachers thousands of years ago realized is that we actually have a choice. This is the big one of the biggest the secret, one of the biggest meditation secrets is that in any experience we have a choice on how we like to respond or react to the situation. We're going to get into that in a little bit deeper, but what I want to be very clear about is this isn't wishful thinking. What we're not saying is that we just have to have a positive mantra and then we'll say it all the time and that's all we need to do and everything will be good, right? It's Tony Robbins says it's like going into your garden and saying there's no weeds, there's no weeds, and thinking that that's going to do something for your garden, right? What meditation does, use Tony Robbins' examples, he is going into the garden and pulling those damn weeds out, right? This is what we're talking about, because what happens is we say, okay, well, I have a positive thought, and I'm going to try to hold to that positive thought. If this is our brain, and the majority of our brain is these negative feedback loops, and I'm stressed out about whatever you're stressed out about. I'm stressed out about money, right? I'm stressed out about family, right? I'll put a little person there, put a little people there, and I'm stressed out about my car. That's supposed to be a car. Right?
Sorry, they can't see it anyway.
I'm stressed out about this and this and this and this, and the majority of what I'm dealing with in my brain is all of this stress, all of these negative feedback loops, all of these stories that play on, and then I say, well, I have this positive intention, and it's like putting a strip of positive intention across all of this negative stuff and thinking that that's going to clear it all out, that's going to make a difference. It's wishing that there are no weeds and thinking that that's going to make a difference. This isn't positive thinking. This is meditation. Is, especially now, which is so phenomenal, is the beautiful time that we're living in, is the best studied performance enhancing tool ever discovered. Period. The best. And why? Because meditation is the process of not trying to put a shiny gloss over this, a strip of good intention. It's saying, let me take a hard look at all of these things. Let me realize that I actually have these negative patterns, these negative feedback loops, and now I can make a choice. Now I can restructure the patterns of consciousness. Very literally meaning the neural structure of the brain can be restructured. The neural structure of the brain creates these neurosynaptic chains, which creates these patterns of consciousness. This is neuroplasticity, which is only 25 years old now, 30 years old maybe, the realization that we can restructure this thing. It used to be that science thought that at about age 7 we're hardwired, that the neural structure of our brain is what it is and we can never change it. And I'm sure you have a parent or a grandparent that still has that mindset, like, it is what it is.
I am who I am.
I can't change it. And it's not the case. Neuroplasticity is the idea of neuroplasticity. This proven science, right? It's proven that we can shift this neural structure in our brain all the way up to the day we die, all the way up to the end. And what meditation is the fire that forges that tool. Right?
So, to unpack a couple of things John said, what he was saying, like these negative feedback loops, there is something in our brains based on what we talked about, it being so old and it having this priority of survival, of it having a negative bias. When we look out in the world and we see the things that could harm us, we're looking at the things that are like inherently negative. And when we do that over and over again, back to John's next point, we're wiring these patterns, literally like these electrical impulses in our brains that when you see something, you have an experience, they light up, they fire, and they shoot these chemicals all across the brain that connect with an experience that you're having. Now, this is like, it's not just here, it's actually physical. Like it's in the brain, but then it goes into the body. When you have a negative experience, when you have a sympathetic nervous system response, meaning you got to fight, flee, like there's food involved, or there's procreation, like you actually have a dump of cortisol, of adrenaline into the bloodstream so that you're ready to fight or to flee. Now, this over time, like it's, by the way, it's good. Like it's why we're here today. Over like 2 million years, we're still here because this thing has worked. But its primary reason, that's its primary priority, being survival, it doesn't care about our happiness. It doesn't care about our well-being. It cares about survival. Now, when we lived to like 20 and 30, it didn't matter. We didn't live long enough so that this constant simmer, this constant activation of the sympathetic nervous system, it didn't have enough time to have a negative effect. But now we're living to like 100 plus for some people, or maybe 75 plus. I don't know what the average.
Depends if they're doing yoga or not.
Yeah, he's 150. I'm only 99. No big deal. No, but
Young buck.
yeah. So, where was I? It was oh yeah. So you have these patterns. So my point is that these patterns of consciousness are physical. It's actually a physical experience. When I have a sympathetic nervous system response, my body feels it. And so what happens when so here's where I was. What's happened now is because of the negativity bias, we're not dealing with life or death situations. We're dealing with red lights. We're dealing with conversations with our bosses.
That happened a week ago even.
We're dealing with conversations with our significant others. We're the only species that, so let's say this, a gazelle on the safari, in the Sahara, wherever they live, they see a lion, and they have the same response. They flee, and they get away. They go back to grazing. We, in that same situation, we have a life or death situation, we run, we get away, we now replay it over and over and over and over and over. And this is the key. Studies have shown that this simulator, right? So the replaying of something that either has happened, that may happen, or that has never happened, that's the simulator. It's like your mental movies that go on all day, every day. You may call it daydreaming. It's literally and the purpose of it is to wire these experiences so that should something happen, I have a programmed response that will let me, a programmed reaction that will let me react quicker and save my life.
If we, hundreds of thousands of years ago, if we were on the Sahara, we needed that simulator to help us get better at saving our butts, right? So it comes back to survival again. Because if I could play out the movie inside of my head that if I see a rustle in the grass and I can dart up a tree, grab a stick maybe, right, it will save me, right? That the lion or saber-toothed tiger that comes out and tries to eat me, I'll be able to swat it with my stick and go or run up a tree and not get eaten completely, right? So it helped us at some point, but now we're not dealing with life or death situations. We're dealing with little things that are insignificant, but they're firing us up the same way because our brains and our bodies,
they cannot distinguish the simulator from reality. Our brains and our bodies cannot distinguish the simulator from reality. What does that mean? It means when I have a mental movie that plays out in my head, my brain and my body are reacting to it as if it were a real life situation happening right now. The very same way it would happen, like the same reactions would happen in the brain and the body, were that same mental movie to actually be happening in reality. This is so important combined with this negativity bias, because now we're playing out the worst case scenarios of life over and over and over and over again. And it's having detrimental consequences to the patterning of our brains and the experience of our bodies, right? We are on a low to medium simmer of like stress all day, every day, because this thing, which is designed for survival, we've let it run out of control. We have no control over it. And right now, because we're living longer, it's having serious effects. 90%, over 90% of doctors' visits are from stress-related illnesses. That was from the CDC, a study from the CDC done in 2016. Over 90% are stress-related illnesses. It's specifically what's going on up here that we're not controlling.
There were studies done that, to come to prove Chris's point, there were studies done where they took a subject, they gave them an apple, told them to eat the apple. They had them all hooked up to EEGs, EKGs, the whole thing. So they wanted to test exactly what was going on in the body as they ate this apple. And so they got their feedback, right? They got all the data from it, and then they had that same subjects sometime after sit down, connected to all the same instruments, sit down, close their eyes, and imagine them eating the apple. What do you think the results were? Do you think they were the same as when he ate it? Yeah, it was the same exact results that came out. It was the same. It was as if he was eating the apple, but it was just in his imagination. So so this is happening all the time to us. When we replay these movies, most of the time they're negative because of everything we've talked about before. This negative bias, we play out the worst case scenario over and over and over again for any situation. Think about the argument you've had recently with a significant other. How many times did you play out that argument after the fact, after it was done? Right? Probably 100 times. And your body reacted the exact same way it did when you initially had that argument. So here's the thing, right? Here's a simple formula that puts it all together. Focus equals feeling. Feeling equals our experience of living. What we focus on creates an emotional response, creates a feeling. That feeling puts lenses of whatever color that feeling is to see the world, creates our experience of living. You know this to be true. I'm sure you've gotten up in the morning, something happened, you spilled your tea or coffee, or you banged your shin, you stubbed your toe, you almost slipped down the stairs, you slipped and laying on your butt, or you checked your email and it was like something that there's a fire that came up yesterday, or someone sent a cursed email to you. You're like, oh, it's going to be one of those days. That's what you told you. It's going to be one of those days. And guess what happened? The entire day turned out to be one of those days. Because in the morning you made a conscious decision to put on the lenses of, it's going to be a bad day. And so what did it do? It primed your brain. There's a part of the brain called the reticular activating system that listens to what we want to pay attention to. And so when we say, brain, it's going to be a bad day, the RAS receptors, the receptors of that part of our brain say, check, we're looking for bad, right? Monitor, look for bad. It's going to be a bad day. We got to see whatever bad's out there. And guess what happens? You see bad everywhere. You see, oh, I hit 3 red lights today on work. It is a bad day. I hit traffic jam on work. Oh, it's a bad day. The person that I work next to smells funny. Oh, it's going to be a bad day, right? It ends up supporting whatever we say it's going to be. It's called priming the brain. We prime the brain. We prime the brain all the time, but we can do this in the morning intentionally, which is where we're going to go eventually. Okay? So, you guys tracking? Is this helpful so far? Hopefully it is. I'll take that as a yes. All right, so we're patterned.
So what's happened over time is that we have these patterns of pathways, these patterns of, we'll call it consciousness, but it's really patterns of focus. Every morning, we're patterned to wake up and focus on certain things. And those certain things we focus on are going to dictate, do I feel good or do I not feel good? And because if we let this thing run by itself without us stepping in, our conscious mind stepping in, what we talk about is that most of the time we're going to focus on those things that are negative because what's running in the background is survival. But so now let's look at this for a second, because that you're like, okay, so what? Great. So I watched and I see things negative, and so I get a little sympathetic nervous system, I get fired up. Maybe that it charges me up, gets me ready for the day. Studies have shown that no, it doesn't. And actually it negatively influences your experience of living on a physical level, but more importantly, you now have a feedback loop of negativity that will reinforce itself over time. This is what it looks like. Okay. We have an experience. It's hard talking this way. Sorry. Yeah, you talk.
So the first part is there's an experience that happens, right? An experience. An experience can be anything, whatever it is. That experience creates sensations throughout the body. Through our five senses. Could argue the fact there's more senses. There is, but we'll call it five senses right now. Through our five senses, we pull that experience into us. Those sensations create a feeling. Right? That feeling comes up in us, and we say, okay, I'm having a feeling. I'm having a feeling. What is this? And that feeling, we react to it. And the reaction falls into three buckets. Simple enough, right? Three buckets. It's positive, negative, or neutral. Positive, negative, or neutral. Now, I'm going to say this feedback loop happens in split seconds. Right? Split seconds. So quickly that all of a sudden we don't even realize it, and it's taken us over. This is how fast patterns work, right? This is the brain, this is the neural structure, this is patterning, this is the synaptic chains firing so fast. Experience happens, creates sensations in the body. Those sensations are perceived as feeling. We react to that feeling. We say, oh, this is a positive feeling. Oh, I want to hold on to it. Or we say, this is a negative feeling. Oh, get it away from me. Push it away. I don't want this negative feeling. Or it's neutral. We're like, keep moving. The reaction, positive or negative, neutral can happen too, but mostly the positive negative realm creates a simulator. Right? Or it doesn't create it, but activates the simulator. The part of our brain that's the storyteller. Right? And it relates it back to old experiences. Right? It's the subconscious kicking. So, how does this relate to any old experiences? Let me drop in the data that relates to this experience. It only has to be partially the same for us to react the same as we did in the past. To have that feedback loop kick in, right? So reaction happens, we react to the feeling, it's positive, negative, the simulator kicks in and begins to tell a story about it. Right? If it's a negative, we're like, another red light, I've been late so many times for work. Chris is gonna say, dude, you're always late. I'm like sick of it, I can't handle it anymore. Or my boss is gonna say, one more time you're fired. Or my partner needs me to come in and I'm late again. Right? There's the story. Boom, 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 boom.
What's crazy about that is that you'll then play their role and be like, yes, you were late and now you're fired. And then I'm going to be all like, but I was late, it was a red light and I couldn't do anything about it. And he's going to be all like, well, you should have woke up earlier. Did you make coffee? How long was it? And you just go back and forth. This is what's so crazy about mine. And then you'll play your part, you'll play their part, you'll play a third party's part who's watching it. And they're like, yeah, that's totally wrong. Shouldn't have done that. It's crazy.
It'll play out all the different parts and it'll lead you in. More importantly, what it does is it creates an emotional experience, right? And so as we're playing out this story in our heads, we're having an emotional reaction to it. So that negative experience of being caught in traffic and being late for work, we already begin to build up this feeling tone in our bodies of negativity based off this simulator, based off this story. We then create this identity around our stories. That's me. I'm always late. That's me. I defend myself because traffic isn't my fault. That's me. I have this.
I'm unlucky in love. That's me.
This identity happens based off of the stories that the simulator tells us. This, guys, is why it's so difficult to let go, right? The identity piece, we fear letting go because the stories we tell ourselves, whether they're negative or positive, create a false sense of self. They create a false sense of self. And so when we're experiencing, when we're not seeing clearly, we're caught in mind chatter, an experience happens, sensation, it creates a sensation, it creates a feeling. We react to that feeling in split seconds. It's positive, negative, neutral. It dumps it into the bucket, and the simulator kicks in and starts telling the story. It could be a positive experience. Something amazing happened to you, and we can turn it. Someone said, Chris, you look amazing today.
Do I not always look amazing? What are you really trying to say? You're such an asshole. Literally though, you know, like people are giving you compliments and you've twisted it and turned it into something negative. Or you just categorically dismiss it. Oh no, that's not me. I'm not pretty. I don't look good. That's not me. What do you really, like, why are you saying that? Like, you know I'm not. Like, all of a sudden you'll create from a positive, you'll turn into a negative. Because this is who we believe ourselves to be.
Or my post got 15 likes today. Well, why does it get 15 likes all the time? Why do we get 15 likes in the future? How do I get more likes? Right? We will create, the simulator will just take that story and run with it in all different crazy directions, and it creates this false sense of self. Right? Now, here's the key, guys. Here's what meditation does. So this is happening constantly. Chris is going to jump in a second.
Real quick, this identity, this false sense of self, so we got to complete the loop. It then puts your glasses on of this is who I am. Now think about it. Once those glasses are on, this is who I am, whether it's right or wrong, you believe yourself to be this is who I am. Now we have another experience. And guess what's going to happen? Because this is who I am, that experience gets filtered the very same way to produce the very same response. Let's get real clear. Very same reaction. Negative reaction. Negative stories. Negative simulations, reinforcing this false sense of self that this is who I am. And then another experience happens, and all of a sudden, guess what? It's pretty sure you're going to have the same feedback loop over and over again, because we fortified ourselves around this identity of this is who I am. And this is what's crazy, is that even the painful ones, like when I was younger, the biggest hurdle that I've had to overcome in my life is the relationship I've had with my dad. Like, he left when I was 2 years old, was like, tried to be in the picture but wasn't. Always forgot my birthdays. Like, it's a long drawn out story, but to keep it short, I hated him for most of my life. That was my story. I was a victim of my father, and I had resentment and hate towards him for the majority of my adolescence. There was a moment, he forgot my birthday yet again, but he called the day before. And I was like, okay, it's the day before, like, I'll give him a break. And when I answered, I was like, hey, he was like, hey, it's Dad. I was like, hey, Dad. And I was super excited, because I was like, man, the day before. And his first question was, is John there?
You know who he likes best.
That. And so, like, it just literally devastated me. But in that devastation, there was a moment, a little opening of insight into the pain that I was in, that I'd been living in, and how much hurt I was holding. And I had to let that go. That was the experience. There was a moment of like, I've got to let this go. But the very thing, like, I knew I had to let it go. And what was I confronted with? Who am I if I let this go? And it took me years later to actually let that go, because of this unwillingness to deal with who I am if I'm not that. This is what's so challenging. Like, it's like we teach this idea of like, deal with issues when they're an acorn, not an oak tree. When it's like, it just happens, and I can have a conversation, and I can reconcile, and I can create harmony, and I can forgive, and I can do all the things that happen in the moment.
Then I can set boundaries, I can be honest with you, I can communicate in a way that doesn't let it go bigger.
This is the power of this process. But what my point really was is, when you get hardened into this identity, man, the feedback loop will just, like, it will prevent you from creating a more abundant, beautiful life. You'll create self-sabotaging patterns, habits, behaviors that keep you stuck in this feedback loop, and you will forever become a victim of life, just like I was with my father and the resentment I held towards him.
And then we easily create patterns around those feedback loops. And so we have a feeling, and we're like, no, I don't want that feeling. I'm gonna push it down. And how do we push it down? We sedate ourselves, right? We have a couple beers and a banana nut pop.
Oh my God.
Right? We drink, or we smoke, or we get crazy and exercise, or we sit in front of the TV and just veg. We do things that sedate us because we don't really want to feel it. But guess what? The only way to the other side of it is through it. We have to feel it. Right? We have to feel it. You all either know your own personal experience, or you know people that have so strongly identified with negative experiences that they had in the past that it comes up over and over and over again. Any situation they have in their lives, it pops up, and they relate it back to, oh, it's because she left me, and I'm unlucky in love. This is going to happen over and over again. And it ends up becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy, in that we get into relationships and they deteriorate, they fall apart because we are identified with being unlucky in love, or whatever you fill in the blank, right? Whatever that big thing is for us that has created that rock hard identity, which isn't rock hard. It's simply a vapor. It's simply a mind construct, a pattern of consciousness that, through neuroplasticity, the understanding of this, that we can deconstruct. How do we deconstruct it?
Meditation.
Bam!
Right? You can see why, like, man, yoga is meditation. You see how transformative this can be and how deep it goes. Why we're like, yes, get on your mat, do some, asana, meaning do the up dog, down dog and stuff, because, like, that's part of the rewiring of this. But, man, it's the superficial, it's the tip of the iceberg. It's to get people, at least on the iceberg, to experience, like, a slightly higher level of quality of living. But, man, like, the transformation, like, the deep dive into the bigger issues of our lives that are really holding us back, this is it. Meditation is the solution.
And so in this negative feedback loop, this is the negative feedback loop, we are starting off if you can read my chicken scratch, it says not seeing clearly. When we are not seeing clearly, we have an experience, and this happens, a negative feedback loop. The solution, and Chris was mentioned, the solution is meditation. What does meditation do? We begin to see clearly. When we see clearly, we have an experience. Let me dive into that a little bit, what I mean by see clearly. We are using the conscious mind to stay present for life as it unfolds in front of us. We are using the conscious mind, not the subconscious mind. When we're not seeing clearly, we're trapped in thought. And we run through our days trapped in thought. The subconscious mind kicks in. The subconscious mind works off old patterns. It's how it works. Nothing in your subconscious is there unless it's a worn pattern, right? Unless you've patterned it enough to have it drop in. You know this simply by your ability to drive a car, drink your latte, eat a sandwich, play with the radio, and maybe text, all at the same time. Please no. But your subconscious keeps you in the lines. Your subconscious keeps you from hitting the car in front of you. It pays attention to the stop sign, the red lights, and all the other things that are going on as you're driving the car, only because you've patterned driving a car so well. It's dropped into your subconscious. It will do it for you. Best. I'll leave it at that. But we're not seeing clearly if we're caught in the subconscious. What I mean by seeing clearly is bringing our full awareness to life as it unfolds in front of us. Bringing the conscious mind to the forefront so that the subconscious mind takes the back seat. This is one of the biggest benefits of meditation, is called pure awareness, but awareness of what's happening, right? So that's what I mean by seeing clearly. When we are seeing clearly, we have an experience. The experience, the same thing, right? Experience turns into sensation, sensation turns into feeling, but now I'm not reacting. So what I'm going to do here is just draw a line right down the middle. Now I have a choice. I'll put a choice here. So my stick and track says, choice, how to respond. Seeing clear, pure awareness, the ability to be present with life as it unfolds, gives me the ability to have a choice. Right? This is the goal, guys. You have a choice on how you want to respond to any situation in your life. Any situation. Even the most challenging, difficult situations, you still have a choice. You still have a choice.
There's this saying, can I jump in real quick? There's a saying that Viktor Frankl wrote about, and this is his quote. I may end up paraphrasing a little bit. Between stimulus and response, there's a space. Within that space is our power to choose a response. And within that choice lies our growth and our freedom. This is it's such a beautiful quote to encapsulate everything we just said. Because if there is no space between when a stimulus happens, what is it called? Reaction. Stimulus happens, reaction. Stimulus happens, reaction. What I'm really saying is, stimulus happens, a pre-programmed reaction comes in. A subconscious pattern comes in, and that's how we approach the situation. Stimulus, reaction, stimulus, reaction, stimulus, reaction. Red light, I'm angry. Someone says something nice to me, I don't take it. Someone, I'm driving in my car and there's a traffic jam and I'm pissed, right? But the question is, if you had the choice, would you choose to be pissed? If you had the choice, would you choose to be angry? If you had the choice, would you choose to be anxious? And if the answer is no, then we have to go back to this idea of, okay, how do I create that space? Because the truth is you do have a choice. This is like the ultimate teaching of yoga, is that you have a choice of how to see any situation in life. But the choice happens when we've created space, when we're present, when we don't have a pre-programmed reaction that is clicked in. We then have space to say, well, how do I want to see this? Do I want to see it clearly? Or do I want to react emotionally? And sometimes you react emotionally, and we have to deal with it. But the quicker we can deal with it and then come back to a conscious presence of I have a choice, and now how do I want to be with this? Then we come back to ourselves again. We come back to a place where we can be skillful with relationships, skillful with challenges, skillful in crises. So that, and this is literally, when you're in an emotional state, you have less cognitive ability to come up with a solution. When you are relaxed, when you are present, with that space, you now literally have more brain power, more ability to see the different opportunities and solutions that are present to you in this moment. And you know this, if you practice yoga and you're watching this, you know you've come into a class gripped by something today, pissed off, angry, upset, anxious, worried, regretful. Something has gripped your mind and you've been holding on to it all day long. And you go into class. This is the genius of the practice. And you move and you breathe and you move and you breathe. And what you're hearing with every cue of inhale up, exhale back, ground the right foot, lift the heart, lengthen the side bodies, set the shoulder blades, inhale up dog, exhale down dog. What that teacher's saying is, be present, be present, be present, be present. Every single cue in a yoga class is a call to be present. And when you do that for 30, 45, 60, 75, 90 minutes of time, of presence, you created that space. And you know, if you had that moment, you get off your mat, and all of a sudden, inside, there's a solution. Maybe not a solution, but you're not gripped by it. There's space, and you can see it differently. You understand that maybe there's you see it symbolically, and you're oh, this is why it happened, and now this is how I can handle it, and this is how I can resolve the situation, and this is how I can learn and grow from it. What happened in that class? It's you created space. You were present, so you can see the situation clearly, not born from a past pattern.
We had a student of ours, one of our trainings, that said, we were talking about this exact subject, and he was like, well, I don't know what it is, but there's part of me, and I just can't change it. It's part of me, I just judge. As soon as I meet someone, I judge them. As soon as I'm introduced and talk to them for a second or two, I judge them. He was like, but that's just me, it's just how I am. I said, no, it's not. You've created a pattern of judging. You have, I'm sure you know somebody in your life that has a pattern of complaining. That's almost hard to be around. man, they always complain about everything. That's not who they are. It's what they've developed. It's the pattern they've developed in their mind. They've just done this so many times, and Simulator has said, this is where we complain, this is where we complain, that they've created an identity as a complainer. Our friend created an identity of a judger. We create these identities around whatever it is we do over and over and over again. And we say, well, it's just me. At some point in your life, it wasn't you. Right? He wasn't, at 5 years old, he wasn't a judger. 7, 8, he wasn't a judger. At some point in his life, that developed. At some point in your life, your friend who's a complainer developed that pattern. And what we're saying is that we can deconstruct that pattern. The more we ride those circuits, the thicker it gets. So there's a brain structure called myelin, and it's sheathing for those neurosynaptic patterns, those neurosynaptic networks. It's sheathing, right? It literally wraps around that to make it more insulated, more insulated, more insulated. So it's like the difference between a copper wire and sending an electrical signal across a copper wire and fiber optics. Right? Sending a laser signal through fiber optics, you get
with insulation that keeps the electrical impulse contained and like more focused.
This is the same things happening in our brains. Right? These deep, warm patterns were created myelin, insulation around those circuits, so that they fire so quickly and so efficiently that we don't even realize it's happening. But just like those connections, neurons that fire together, wire together, neurons that fail to sync, fail to link. Right? So if we continue to fire, we get stronger at those patterns. If we break those patterns through meditation, through seeing clearly, through being present with life as it unfolds, the myelin deteriorates and those signals begin to break apart. And we build new neural connections, new neural circuits. So the seeing clearly, I have a choice. When I make a conscious choice, the simulator will no longer kick in. I won't have a deep worn, I won't create a pattern, a story around anything, I won't create an identity around it. And I can live with what's happening. Making a conscious choice of how do I want to be in this moment? How do I choose to be in this moment?
An experience just becomes an experience and not a commentary on your life. Right? People are just being people, situations are just situations, and I have a choice on how I want to handle and deal with all of it. So now here it is, like I just talked about, well, you had the experience in yoga. Well, then what happens is we become dependent on the practice of yoga. Like we gotta be there because I gotta get in, and like it's a good thing. Like don't get me wrong, but what we're saying too is that there's a meditation, there's a process within the practice of meditation that we're not dependent on anything outside of ourselves to experience that release, because we can pattern ourselves to be present. We can pattern presence. Let me say this real quick. What this is presence. Presence born from focusing your attention to one point for consistently over the long term of your life. That's it. I wish right now you could just listen to this and after that be like, oh my God, I understand the process. I am free from all my patterns. No, it doesn't work that way. Please, I swear, I wish it worked that way. I wish. One moment, insight, boom, done. I am free. I am present with all of life. I'm not triggered by emotional reactions ever again. And it's just not the case. It's the law of little things. I talked about this yesterday. You gotta practice, and you gotta practice, and you gotta practice, and
you gotta stumble, and you gotta fail, and you gotta fail forward, and you gotta see it happen. The impulses come up, and you notice the impulses. The impulses are simply this old wiring, the old patterns that are there. You feel the impulse come up, and in the beginning, you're just going to roll with it. You're like, you're going to be chasing the words as you lay into somebody. And eventually, with time, you'll feel the impulse come up, and you'll say, ooh, oh yeah, there it is. Well, I have a choice. I'm going to choose differently. And with time, that impulse becomes where, in the beginning, it's like a scream, it becomes a voice, and then it becomes a whisper, and then eventually, it shifts, and you've created a new pattern.
So how do you go about doing that? So if we left it right here, we actually did you a disservice. Because now you're aware that there's a choice, but you don't actually have a skillful response, if you don't meditate at all, of how to do it. So now you're just so aware that you're crazy. Like mega crazy. And freaking yourself out because you actually have a choice. And now we threw you into the wilderness without any roadmap. And you're like, Like this happens on some of our trainings, like when we don't get to like what we're about to get to right now, and we were like, oh my God, I just got, on my drive home, I was literally like beside myself because I actually am conscious of the simulator just running in all these different directions. So let's help you out with that.
So what we're going to deep dive into in our trainings, because we don't actually have enough time right now, we'll cover some other things. We're going to touch on this, but what we deep dive into the trainings is this process, the solution. How do we deconstruct these patterns of consciousness? How do we level up in our ability to practice this experience of life on a high level? Meditation, again, I'm going to say it again. Meditation is the best studied performance enhancement tool ever. Right? The best, hands down. So how do we go about it? So in the trainings, we're going to go into depth on how to take a seat. What is the best way to take a seat?
When I started meditating, you want to put how to take a seat on there? Yeah. Oh, no, actually, you probably use a different one. Here, it's blue. So back in my I was actually like late teens, early 20s, I decided, honestly, I don't remember how it was probably from him, but like I heard about meditation and I read somewhere that you should meditate for an hour. And I was like, well, I'm doing it. And so I sat down, put a timer on, and it was a knockdown, drag out fight, physically, mentally. I was like in such like agony, like trying to sit there still in a cross-legged position, knees way up, hips just on fire. My mind was like, you can't sit here anymore, you're gonna die. Your hips are gonna explode and your spine is gonna break. Literally at the end, my whole body was convulsing. And I was like, mentally just like, oh, I'm gonna sit for it, I can't wait. And I'm looking down and it's like 5 minutes and I'm like freaking out. Like, I did it for an hour, I endured, I completed it. And I didn't meditate again for I think it was like 6 months. I was like, I didn't see colors, I didn't see lights, I didn't have a God experience, I didn't like see the truth of who I am. It was nothing. I was like, that was torture. And if that's what meditation is, I'm done. I didn't even like think about meditation for 6 months. How to take a seat is so important because you don't need to fight yourself. You don't need to struggle. You don't need to be in a lotus position to have an enlightened experience and meditate.
No, you don't need any crazy yoga poses where you're tying yourself up in knots. We're very practical about our ability to take it, about the reason why to take a seat. Right? It needs to support you. And so we break that down to the degree. Something I was going to add to that, and it's not in my brain, it just slipped out, so we'll go to the next piece.
Probably not a Westerner shouldn't even sit in lotus.
It was something like that. So the next piece is how to develop a habit.
Yeah. So how to develop? So first you gotta, really, I'm gonna put this. So this is really important, and there's a couple different aspects to it. How to develop a habit without a habit. It's like me. That one time, it didn't do anything for me. 0. It actually was adversely effective.
You didn't want to meditate anymore.
It activated the sympathetic nervous system. I was in a fight or flight response for a good 45 minutes. I'm pretty sure my body was like fatigued. Like my immune system was fatigued for days afterwards. It was not a meditative experience. And so I couldn't develop a habit. But without the habit, you don't bear the fruit. There's no results that you're going to get. So some people are like, well, can I just meditate for 1 hour once a month? And I'm like, yeah, you can do it, but you're going to die, emotionally, psychologically, and physically, because physically you have to develop the posture and the strength to hold your body in that position for longer periods of time. Mentally, you have to develop and understand that to continue the process, you got to understand what success looks like, and you got to understand what failure looks like.
And you need to have a stepstone approach to both of those, right? You cannot throw yourself in some crazy position and think that it's going to work, like Chris's experience. He threw himself into a crazy posture, crazy position. Not crazy, but it was for his body, yeah, it was crazy at the time. And it didn't work, right? It adversely affected his desire to meditate anymore after the fact. So there has to be a stepstone approach to it. We have to start in a specific way and then have a slow build. The same thing holds true to developing your habit of meditation. You can't sit down, use a crazy meditation technique that only masters use and then think you're going to do an hour meditation. Not going to happen, right? There is a stepstone approach to developing the habit of meditating for longer and longer periods of time, right? And as we meditate more and more, we get more comfortable with it, we start to understand it better, we start to feel what we're supposed to be feeling with it, and it gives us traction, right? Remember what I was going to say. Meditation is not about relaxation. There's a benefit of relaxation that happens after the fact, but one of the biggest common misbeliefs about meditation is that I should be completely relaxed as I'm sitting here or lying here. I meditate lying down, which is actually called a nap. It's not meditating, right?
Not bad, but not meditation.
No, like meditation isn't supposed to be relaxing. There's work that happens when we're meditating. There's work in the body to develop the seat. There's work in consciousness to hold our consciousness to one point, to see the patterns that pop up, to see the turning of the mind and bring it back to that anchor over and over and over and over again. Right? So many people think, well, meditation is all just about relaxation. So I'm going to sit in my lazy boy, I'm going to close my eyes, and I'm going to let my mind just go off and do its thing. And that's meditation. It is not meditation. Right? Meditation will give you a deep sense of relaxation, but it's only after we've dealt with what's not keeping us that deep sense of relaxation, right? What's pulling the mind and pulling our emotional makeup, what's affecting the body in such a negative way. Meditation goes right to the heart of it, right? It's the sword that cuts through it if we give ourselves the time and the experience to build to that.
So another way of saying that is like, physically, it is austere. You gotta sit upright. You gotta be strong. You gotta have good posture. So when John's saying it's not supposed to be relaxing, it's not supposed to be physically relaxing. It's supposed to be mentally calming, psychologically stilling. That is a huge difference, but you'll set yourself up for failure if you think that, I should be relaxed, because that's not the case. The last thing is to carve out the time and the space. It is so important. Carving out the time and the space is, it kind of leans back into the stepping stone approach, which was, instead of doing 1 hour once a month, do 1 minute 3 times a day, or 5 minutes once a day, or 10 minutes 2 times a day. Like the consistency in the beginning. There's a saying, habit is more important than intensity. What that means is doing less more often is more beneficial than doing more less often.
Consistency. Another way of saying that is consistency is more important than intensity. Right? To be consistent, to be steadfast in what we're doing is more important than doing one big hour-long meditation and never meditating again for an entire month. Like, all right, here's my one Sunday a month that I meditate. Here we go. I'm going to sit for an hour. I'm going to grind it out, and that's all I'm going to do for another month. 1 minute a day is way more beneficial than doing an hour once a month or once a week, for that matter.
Yeah. And I think I skipped 2. What does success look like? Success looks like you're now aware when your mind is off and running.
And that's beginning level success. You just become aware of it. You notice when that impulse comes up. You notice when you're in the simulator. You notice when you're trapped in thought. Then at that moment, the moment you notice, the moment you bring your conscious mind to the subconscious chatter, to the subconscious story you're telling yourself, at that moment you've given yourself the choice. Do I want to stay playing this scenario out in my head, or do I want to be present for life? Do I want to pay attention to what's going on actually in front of me? That's the key. That's the first level of success. Right? And it builds from there. We'll go deeper into this in trainings.
Yeah.
And carving out the space, it's then again, a place in your house. Set it up where you do meditation right here. This is where I meditate. So that when you get home or you wake up in the morning, you don't have to like move things around and like, let me put my chair over here, like let me set my cushion up here, let me put my things over this way. No, make it simple. Where it's set, your meditation cushion or your chair you're sitting in, whatever the space you're in to meditate in, is the same every single time. You sit, boom, you're done. Right? You sit and boom, you started. Right? You're right there. There's no setup. There's no like doing this. You think I can just sit down and meditate. Right? Carve out the space and then carve out the time. What we mean by carving out the time is I set a timer. Chris sets a timer. Everyone we teach, we tell them use a timer. Set your timer so you hold you accountable to the time you're giving yourself to meditate. And you meditate for start in the beginning. You're going to start small, and we'll build from there.
We have so much more information that we're going to cover, but we are short of this time. And so, what we teach in what's coming up, the Awaken Life Live event, what's coming up in the teacher training is the deep dive into the mechanics of how to be successful in this. Because success in this, what does it look like at the higher levels is, conscious living, like presence, no longer being triggered by little insignificant shit, and you're like present and fully charged and fully alive for life, and you're not seeing things from past patterns, but you're experiencing life as it is, and being able to create intentional creation. This is where we're going tomorrow, is that now you've been patterned, you're focused, you've got the ability to control what flows through your awareness and be deliberate in the clearing of the mind, and then being deliberate in what you want to focus on, because that is the foundation to create the relationships of your dreams, the lifestyle of your dreams, the health and the well-being that will allow you to appreciate and enjoy all the other things that you create in your life. This is the power of meditation, and this is what we're going into on a deep level in the Awaken Life Live event that's coming up next weekend, and the teacher training that's going on starting next weekend, but is going on even longer. And so if this was yes, I want to learn more about this, I see it, I understand it. If we connected with you in a way I understand, I see the patterning, and I do want to, I want more. I want to understand how to break those patterns and live my most passionate, purposeful life. Please click the link and join us in this Awaken Life Live event. There's only a couple spots left, and we would love to have you.
Yeah, I think there's only 9 spots. And there was 10 spots yesterday, and someone signed up yesterday, so I think it's 9 spots left. And
I don't know. I just know there's a limited number left, and here we go.
9 spots. There's only a few spots left in teacher training, and a little bit more left. 9 spots total. A few more left in the Awaken Life. So sign up.
We'd love to have you. Can't tell you. This is our purpose. This is our passion in life, and we know the benefit of what will happen if you say yes and make the decision to be a part of this.
So I'm going to leave you with this: focus equals feeling. Feeling equals the experience of living. Master your mind, or the mind is going to master you.
That's about it. Thank you so much. If you stay with us this whole time, thank you. Your presence means more to us than you know.
Yes.
And thank you for your support. Thank you for watching. And join us tomorrow, same time, 12:30. We're going to be talking about the secrets of manifestation. How, with all this foundational stuff, movement, meditation,
Juicy stuff.
Oh, now we get to create. Now this is where it gets exciting and fun. You get playful with what you want to create in your life.
So if you're watching this later, you caught this later on, you're not watching it live, still comment. Chris and I are going back in and we're answering questions, we're helping out any way we can. Like it, comment, share, subscribe to our YouTube channel, do all those things to spread the word because people need this information. Big love.
I'm trying.